Abandoned places have a special atmosphere to them. Some of them attract with their beauty, others with their interesting history and secrets. Time and nature do not spare them. Hurry up to see the 10 most beautiful abandoned places and buildings from different parts of the world. Number 1. Paveglia, Italy. The darkest island of the Venetian lagoon is shrouded in stories that make the blood run cold. The first mention of it dates back to 421. In 1379, its residents were moved to Giudecca after the attack of the Genoese. In the 17th century, an octagonal fort was built there to protect and control the entrance to the lagoon. In 1776, Paveglia became a checkpoint for people and goods going in and out of Venice. At the end of the century, after cases of plague on ships, the island was turned into an infirmary for the sick, which lasted until 1814. Those infected with this terrible disease have been periodically exiled there since the 14th century. During that time, several thousand people were buried on Paveglia. Rumor has it that the top layer of the earth is completely composed of the ashes of the dead. In 1922, an asylum for the mentally ill was opened on Paveglia. According to rumors, the staff conducted terrible experiments on patients, and the head physician, driven mad by the voices of his victims he heard in his head, jumped off the bell tower. The hospital closed in 1968, and the site has since fallen into disrepair. Number 2. Villa on Lake Como, Italy. The villa on Lake Como was built in the 1850s for the Felix de Vecchi family. The mansion turned out to be exquisite. It was famous for its beautiful interior design, a large park, and beautiful fountains. But, like every haunted house, it has a sad story. One day, the owner returned home to find that his wife had been brutally murdered and his daughter had disappeared. Felix de Vecchi couldn't deal with grief and committed suicide. Ever since then, the villa has been abandoned. Number 3. Ta Prohm Temple, Cambodia. The majestic temple monastery once belonged to the Khmer civilization. In the 15th century, neighboring Thailand attacked the Khmers. The Thais took all the treasures out of the temple, and it remained abandoned. Now, the stone structure is overgrown with plants. In the 1970s, it was decided to restore the temple, leaving giant trees in place, which had already covered the buildings with their roots. It was decided to make them into the temple's special feature. Now, Ta Prohm is open for tourists. It is also known in the world because some scenes for the Lara Croft Tomb Raider 2011 movie featuring Angelina Jolie were filmed in this temple. Monument at the top of the Bozza, Bulgaria. This peak is an important place for Bulgarians. The hero, Hadzi Dimitar, died there in the fight against the Turks. The founding Congress of the Bulgarian Communist Party was held on Bozza, which is why it was a sort of shrine of the Bulgarian communists, and a monument to the party was erected there. Until 1989, congresses, pioneer initiations, and holiday celebrations were held there. With the fall of the communist regime, the monument was abandoned. Number 5. Cemetery of the Ships, Uzbekistan. The Aral Sea was once one of the largest salt lakes and was used for navigation, but it slowly dried up as the water was actively used for agriculture. Now, the rusty remains of ships can be seen in the former fishing settlement of Moynak as a kind of monument to former prosperity. Number 6. Kilchurn Castle, Scotland. The 15th century fortress stands on an island in Loch Awe, Scotland. The castle belonged to the noble Campbell family for several centuries, but in 1760, lightning struck the building and it was badly damaged by a storm. No one has lived in Kilchurn since then. Now, the ruins of the castle are one of the most popular tourist destinations in the region. Number 7. Church with Ghosts, Czech Republic. The church in the Czech village of Lukova was built in the 14th century, and it has been abandoned since the 1960s. But this is no ordinary abandoned church. It is filled with eerie ghosts of worshippers. This isn't mysticism, but an art project by the artist Jakuba Hadrava. The ghostly sculptures symbolize the parishioners who attended the church and died during World War II. Number 8. Dome House at Cape Romano, USA. An unusual house standing in the waters of the Gulf of Mexico near Cape Romano in Florida impresses with its alien shape and raises questions from people not familiar with its history. It was built by oil tycoon Bob Lee in 1982 by a unique design. The house consisted of 6 domed structures, some of which had 2 levels. There were 3 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms inside. The structure was completely independent, with electricity provided by solar panels and generators, while rainwater and dew rolled down the sloping roofs into a reservoir where it was filtered and further distributed. The house changed owners until 1992, when its interior was destroyed by Hurricane Andrew. They tried to restore the building after that, but they couldn't do it. By 2016, the structure had moved 55 meters away from the shore due to natural processes. The following year, Hurricane Irma destroyed 2 of the western domes. The many underwater inhabitants of the area have started living there. Number 9. Train Cemetery, Bolivia. An unusual place near the famous Uyuni salt flat is located 3 kilometers away from the city of the same name. At the beginning of the 19th century, there were plans to expand the transportation network by building more railway lines there. But due to technical difficulties and backlash from the indigenous population, the project was gradually abandoned. The remaining trains were used to transport minerals until the mines were finally depleted in the 1940s. Many trains were abandoned right in the middle of the plain, eventually turning into a cemetery of steam locomotives, which has become a striking landmark of the area. Gradually, the trains got covered with rust, dismantled for parts, and looted. But the atmosphere there is still impressive, especially at sunset. Number 10. Eastern State Penitentiary, USA. This is the darkest and most mysterious building in the center of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. The prison was built in 1829 and was in operation until 1971. It pioneered a system that encouraged solitary confinement as a form of rehabilitation. Each prisoner stayed in his cell, and the warden came to see them 3 times a day. The convicts also took solitary walks. The Eastern State Prison has a radial structure. Long hallways extend from the center, and cells are located along them. Each cell has a separate exit to the courtyard. This building plan was later copied by about 300 correctional institutions around the world. In 1929, the famous gangster Al Capone was imprisoned there. There's information about numerous psychological and physical torture of convicts by prison staff. Now, Eastern State Penitentiary operates as a museum. It hosts tours, exhibitions, and themed events.